products. You want to have products with recycled material. You want to know when you buy a component, can it be remanufactured? Is there a chance for a second life? We only said one thing. We really want to stop this climate emergency, and we have here a big responsibility.
In this episode of Transformers, it is my pleasure to host Andrea Fuder, who is Chief Purchasing Officer of Volvo Group and member of Volvo Group Executive Board. Welcome to our episode of Transformers.
Thank you for inviting me. It's lovely to be here, Shireen.
We are delighted to have you because the Volvo Group has announced that they are on a journey for a net zero greenhouse gas supply network by 2040. And you are the person who's responsible for this work. What does it mean to have such a target?
It's a massive task, I can tell you, because Volvo Group, we have 50,000 direct supply partners. And you can imagine when we just go down the tiers, how many it will be. So it's a big task, and therefore we better start now, and we start full force, because otherwise we cannot fulfill our ambitions.
How challenging is it for a company the size of Volvo Group to make this proposition? And what was the process? Take me a little bit through the process. Did you sit down and review your checks and balances and say, can we do it? How much would it cost us? Is it the correct business decision? How did you come up with this in terms of the process? And because that also reflects entirely also on the values of the company.
I fully agree. And I can tell you straight away, no, we did it not having all the facts and figures. We did it not by knowing exactly what will be the cost, how long will it actually take, supply chain by supply chain. We only said one thing. We really want to stop this climate emergency, and we have here a big responsibility. Therefore, we made the commitment, we created our vision, we were clear on our values, and then we went. And of course you can say, is this naive? Perhaps some people say that. I think it's just brave and bold to do what you are believing in. And coming back to this huge supply network we have, I think some companies just get completely stuck when they try to say, okay, first we have to have all the data, exactly which supply chain. Then you never start. So we were very pragmatic. You know, we analyzed coming from the material content we have on our products and say, let's start from this angle. Let's say how many material we have on our trucks. How many steel, how many aluminium, how many rubber from tires, for example, how many polymers. And let's start there, because then you have a manageable size of things. And then we analyzed what is the carbon emission by material. And then it was for us super clear where we have to start. It's steel and die casting parts, because this is by far our biggest carbon footprint we have in our products. So this is how we approached it. Very pragmatic, simple, not getting lost in, okay, first we need a good data model. We have to know it all, because then you never start, I can promise you.
Well, in that sense, you're a trailblazer and a pioneer, especially when we talk steel. I mean, as the chief purchasing officer, you are, well, it's, I suppose, a dream job in the sense that you're always going shopping for great things. Tell me about steel, and tell me about your target when it comes to steel, and why is this important? At Stockholm Plus 50 just a few months ago, you've done something spectacular. You took quite an ambitious idea and you gave it to the consumer and say, hey, go ahead, you can use that. As a B2B company, what does that mean to you?
So when it was clear for us that look into the materials, it's really steel what we have to attack first. If we don't manage that, we can forget the rest. Then, of course, we were looking to our existing partners, who are the ones who can really help us with that. And then we started with the Swedish company SSAB, a steel producer, who had already created a fantastic ecosystem. Because what has happened is that really a mine in North Sweden, LKAB, Swedish energy producer, Vattenfall, and SSAB, they have already looked into how can we make this chain fossil-free, from mining to steel production, using renewable energy only. And this is where we say, these are the guys we have to start with. And they were also looking for a brave customer who is ready to think about putting fossil-free steel into the products. So we actually signed a contract last year in May, and you just mentioned Stockholm this year in June. And this year in June, we handed over a hauler built in fossil-free steel to our first customer, who is now using it in daily operation. So it was in speed time, just by working in the right ecosystem with partners who share the same vision and have the same values, not getting stuck in all the details straight away.
Well, I think in a way, what is really a very incredible message in this, and just in our previous conversation, I told you, what do you expect of the competition? And more or less we said they should follow what we are doing. So you're trailblazing a path that could inspire an entire industry. And I think by the look of the next generation, the generation that's the youth of today, the leaders of tomorrow, we hope. I hope and I do believe that it would be very difficult for them to take decisions where I'm going to buy a product that is not sustainable. So in a way, not only are you trailblazing a market, but you are building intelligently on, a culture where if you're not environmentally friendly, you probably will not be allowed to make profit, and this is what we hope for.
I can fully agree. And when you look now to the steel industry, of course, we have many more partners. All of them are now highly engaging in fossil-free steel. So I think that's fantastic. So sometimes it needs some brave ones who inspire the industry. And just a little bit of note on the next generation, because I have children of my own. I think they are great. I love that they are so reflective. I love that they really question so many things. So this generation, I'm pretty convinced, will just take what we have achieved and bring it to perfection. So I have so much trust in this generation.
Let's talk about money. Let's talk about purchasing power.
Yeah, purchasing power. And, I'm a chief purchasing officer of a huge group. So in this position, I can actively influence many of our supply partners, coming back to this 50,000, because at the end of the day, as purchasing, we put our demands on our partners. And of course, what we put into our demands will be cascaded down. So I really strongly believe that purchasing power can help a lot to accelerate the transformation. And therefore, last year in Glasgow at the COP26, when the First Movers Coalition was found, we were a founding member because we really believe in that collective purchasing power can change what is really happening in the area of sustainability. And of course, it's not only about companies. I think also public purchasers should really use that. Put in your demands that you want to have sustainable products, you want to have decarbonized products, you want to have products with recycled material. You want to know when you buy a component, can it be remanufactured? Is there a chance for a second life? So this is what we can influence with a lot of force. And this is exactly what we are doing now.
This is your first COP, surprisingly. How are you finding it? And what are your aspirations? I mean, first, what are you here for? What do you aim to achieve? And maybe in a bigger way, as a citizen of this planet, what are, and of course in your position, what are your hopes and aspirations, what we would come up with in terms of building from Glasgow to this one?
I think, of course, at Glasgow there were big decisions made, and I think the COP27 is a lot about implementation and progress, right? This is my first COP27, and being the rookie here, of course, I was watching a lot of panels. And I would say, on one side, I really get inspiration by others, just listening to them. On the other side, I also feel that there are still some companies or associations or whatever who for my personal opinion are still too much in the headline, where you miss this clear action. And there are also sometimes I feel there are companies who get too stuck in this. They want to be super granular, want to have everything exactly, knowing all the costs. But like I said before, Shireen, I think when you go that way, you never start. Just take the first step. It is anyhow a journey with thousands of steps, but start to walk with concrete actions. So yeah, it's so what is my impression? I think it's both. It's great inspirations, it's great news, but on the other side, it's also where I say, okay, you could have been a little bit more concrete.
I think the more realistic we become, and I think the more outspoken we are, it's the only way to move forward. And what I saw during this COP, there was a lot of realism rather than, not. And I think the focus, they call it the Africa COP for a reason. And Africa is taking center stage. And I think the message from African leaders that we heard here and what we have been hearing for a while is there is no time for them and for their countries and their populations to lose anymore. This year, we witnessed in Europe and in the US very severe impacts of climate change suddenly coming to people's doorsteps. And in Africa, it's been happening for a very, very long time. And this is why, for them, the focus on implementation is paramount. I originally planned to maybe conclude with this question. However, maybe another follow-up question kind of presents itself in a way. In Africa, in order to embrace the latest technologies, seem to be on the minds of some of their leaders, especially in terms of being ahead of the curve, trying to leap forward with the newest technologies in place. How important do you think that is? And do you think there are any challenges in doing that, especially from an infrastructure point of view? I mean, one of the areas that Volvo works on in terms of, heavy transport, heavy machinery is electrification and so on. And it doesn't seem so easy. I mean, these are things we say, we can do that, but there is an infrastructure cost, there is infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. But first of all, I think, of course, I would like to remind that we are a global company. So we consider in our commitments and ambitions the whole world. And if you allow me, Shireen, in Africa, we have also 1,000 employees. We have a plant in South Africa. We sell our products and we have service points in 50 countries in Africa. And as everything starts with people, where we are invested since long is really in skilling. We have training for mechanics, for technicians, for driver. And we have some very special efforts. We make business education for women who own their own trucks. So we are already engaged. But coming back to your concrete question, you're right. We invest in battery electric trucks. We invest in fuel cell electric trucks, but we are also very clear we continue to invest in combustion engines driven with biofuels, hydrogen. And you are right, not every country will have the infrastructure needed for electrified products. Therefore, it is so important that we continue also to invest in the combustion engine. And for example, in Africa, there is a lot of opportunity to think about a combustion engine driven by biofuels, by green energy. To produce green energy, we know you need a lot of renewable energy to really make out of water, hydrogen, and oxygen. And here we have so many opportunities for renewable energy. So I really think we don't believe in this. There is one golden bullet. It's only electric cars with battery. This will not work, because you need at the same time the infrastructure developed. So if we really want, as a global company, make our shift in all the countries, all the markets where we have our products, we have to continue to invest as well in combustion engine, but driven with biofuels, with hydrogen, green hydrogen. And I think this is how I think it makes most sense for many African countries, where you are right, to set up the infrastructure will take enormous time, and we should not wait for that.
And I think just like when we talk about people like words, and communication is all about words and language. And when we talk about adaptation, when we talk about building resilience, what can be quite interesting is that there are elements of mitigation there. I mean, if the world understands that part of financing for the developing world to better adapt, to better move forward, and eventually to mitigate, as we have this discussion, is to build the infrastructure, because people do want the electric cars. They do want, the solutions that are the best, the latest. And therefore, infrastructure and financing infrastructure, especially sustainable infrastructure, this is one way of transforming, transitioning whole economies, rather than settling for what is good, but settling for what is best.
Yeah. And also here, of course, I agree. When there are countries who have the financial power to invest in this structure, then it could be battery electric. Or perhaps it could be fuel cell electric, meaning running the trucks by green hydrogen. So my point really is there is not one size fits all. Africa is a huge continent, and not every country will work in the same speed. If we have the financial muscles to set up the infrastructure,
let's do it. But we don't have to wait. We can have the solutions you're talking about to do it now.
If not, so therefore, like I said before, we invest in all technologies so that we can support according the environment. And and I think that's the right thing to do, to have a big offer so that we can serve the society of a specific country, the customer of a specific country in the best way. And we don't tell them what they have to do. It's really a dialogue to find the best solutions and the best applications.
And it is about people at the end.
I love that, what you just said, because, in all these discussions about technology, innovation,
finance,
infrastructure, everything comes down to people. So skill the people, love the people, protect the people, allow everyone to grow and have a safe and healthy life. When you start there, you can't go wrong. This is of utmost importance. And this is where everything what you do as a company has to start. And also allow me, because we are talking about, you have children, I have children, right? What should we tell them, Shireen? If they ask us what we hand over to them, Mama, how have you used your position to give me this world in a better shape? I don't want to stand there and say, oh, not so much, to be honest.
I guess you have a few things under your belt already. So transforming industries, using new materials, looking at value chains, and I think carrying the message forward and inspiring others to do more. So, Andrea, I must say, we are delighted to have this conversation with you. We will have more, I'm sure. And we're delighted to have you on Transformers. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Shireen. It was a very nice discussion.